This is Reimagine the Contact Center. I'm Marc Bernstein, and today I'm interviewing Davit Baghdasaryan, CEO and founder of Krisp. Krisp started out as noise cancellation AI, separating human speech from all the background noise, which was a really big feat when it was first invented. And since then, Krisp has advanced to offer meeting assistant technology and even real-time translation. Very excited about this interview with Davit today. And I was really blown away by how even keeled he is and how balanced his thinking is, while also how passionate he is about his space. I hope you enjoyed today's interview as much as I did. And everybody, now is Davit Baghdasaryan with Krisp. Davit, hey, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks for this opportunity.
No, seriously, my pleasure. One of the things I appreciate about you the most as an entrepreneur, you bring a different lens to building an AI company, a tech company than, a lot of folks who have, grown up in the West Coast of the United States and spent all their time in Silicon Valley. You grew up in Armenia and have brought the headquarters of Krisp to Berkeley. I'd love to just start by hearing a little bit about, your perspective. How has growing up in Armenia kind of influenced how you view tech and AI today?
Growing in Armenia actually brings a lot of sort of traits that perhaps you wouldn't find elsewhere. Maybe not in the US. It brings resiliency, right? So Armenia, like when we were growing, actually, when I was little, there was a war here happening, and uh, we have gone through a lot of like struggle, economic and other types, and I think, I mean, obviously that was like pretty bad experience for the family and a lot of people, but also I think it just makes people tougher, right? You just start to understand life from a different perspective and appreciate things from different perspective. So it's like we sort of like grew through those times, and from technology perspective, like back then, I think when I was growing here, like there was a lot of lack of information, right? Like we didn't know. I had no idea about startups. I went to school and I went to university, and like the first time I touched a computer, it was like when I was, well, I don't know, like 20 years old. I remember how I turned on a computer. I vividly remember that day. So I came to this sort of industry quite late, I would say, but I was like super passionate about it right after that. So a lot of like lack of information. I mean, today is not that case, right? Like information is everywhere, accessible, and so on, and like thanks to technology, that's possible. But yeah, so we were like, I was at least like highly disconnected from Silicon Valley until I moved to Silicon Valley in 2008. And that was like a very eye-opening experience for me.
What do you think you've learned from the Valley?
Oh man, a lot actually. I think the biggest thing I learned was the American way of doing business, right? And the business culture in US. And that was, I highly appreciate that. I love that actually. I love the, transparency, authenticity of, just like when two people can meet each other and they start things from like trust, like they basically say, we trust each other, and then we'll see how it works out, right? Unlike in other places, in other cultures, two people meet each other and they're like, okay, we don't trust each other, and as time goes, we might trust each other. And but one insight I learned is that like this first time, like the first approach is actually much better because um, there is a risk of failure, of course, right? Like you might trust someone that you shouldn't have, but actually in most cases it just makes things way faster. Like so, two strangers can build things together. We don't have like to spend like years of building trust with each other. So that's like one example of things that is in contrast to other cultures.
That's so cool. You can think of almost like a lack of trust as friction. and
Yeah.
that you have two parties who want to communicate with each other or work together or get something done. And if there's not trust, they might not be exchanging information or ideas or work as freely. And if you come in just assuming maybe or a higher level of trust, you can immediately start to communicate and work together and get positive momentum, where if you're starting from a place of distrust, it might be harder to do that.
I think sometimes it's just impossible. Like, look at the speed of and the pace of development, like, or startups, right? It's just impossible to build startups or be in technology if you don't have that this first principle of like trusting each other. Like, and I think it's just like at a different level in US, even compared to Europe and other places. It's just different level, and I highly appreciate it.
Let's talk about Crisp's technology. Where did you guys start building, and what are you building today?
Sure, yeah, we started the company actually started on the idea of building AI noise cancellation. Like, we didn't use the AI word back then. It was all about like machine learning, deep learning, and so on. But the idea was to use that approach to and apply it to noise cancellation, which nobody was doing. There were some works in academia, but that was it, right? And my background was I used to work at Twilio for a long time, so I was in communications, but I had no idea about deep learning. And then I met my co-founder Artur, who was super interested in doing something in deep learning. So I told him this idea, and the idea came from just personal need. I wanted to have some privacy when I was traveling back to Armenia and working still at Twilio. So I wanted to have some privacy when joining calls, like basically a button that I would click and the background noise would disappear. And that's exactly what we have built over time, right? So original team was like we had like 7 PhDs from in math and physics. Basically, everyone were PhDs except me, and we were like just reading papers and trying to make sense of like deep learning and digital signal processing. So that was like these two sort of areas of math were not sort of interconnected yet. That was like 7 years ago, and it was like the tooling wasn't there, so it was like a lot of struggle before we made the first version of this technology. That was like noise. So we started with noise cancellation. We pioneered this to the industry, and today we built this like app that does noise canceling, right? But we have expanded the product like hugely. So it's today like we have two products actually. One of the products is focused on call centers, where we do like noise cancellation. We do accent localization, which is real time, right? We are about to launch real time voice translation into the product, and like note taking into the product and so on for call centers. And then we have the meeting assistant app, which is for hybrid workforce, right? Like for any team, basically. Internally, we call it like Notion, but for calls, basically, it listens to all the calls in the company, right? Where it has permissions to, and then it like synthesizes that insights and information from these calls so that everyone in the company can consume it in a fast way and be more productive. So these are the two sort of main product lines we have. Very different from each other in terms of segments and focus, but they share a lot from technology and architecture perspective.
One of the things I think is so interesting in the AI space, with contact center, is how companies are experiencing a lot of pressure to build out portfolios of products. Part of that is that users have such high demand for AI, and there's so much low hanging fruit you can accomplish by building a new product in a new area. So I'm interested, for you guys, do you view what you've built as a portfolio of different AI products that people can kind of choose from a la carte? Do you view it as a platform where you're trying to tie it all together? How are you guys viewing your like build path, if that makes sense?
But by the way, like one sort of comment I have there is that I think like AI has accelerated the the trend that more software will be consolidated. And unless you build this portfolio of a lot of things, call it platform or something else, it's hard to compete in the industry. With SaaS, like in the last, let's say, decade, like you could have like one niche sort of vertical feature that you would do best, and then you could build a company based on that, right? But I think like that's probably, with AI, that's going to change. That's like at least an observation. But yeah, like coming back to your question, look, like one of the hardest things at Krisp, and I think like pretty much like in many companies, is to figure out like what's this going to become, right? What's this thing that you're building is going to become? I think like building like a noise canceling technology is like hard enough, but then like figuring out what your product vision is and then prioritize things and so on, like it's extremely hard as well, has been at least for Krisp. So I think like today we are certainly we like at least in the call center product or contact center product that we have, it's a portfolio of features that we have today, right? But like we have a vision to make it a platform, right? For it to become a platform. And I think this is universally true for any company that wants to become a big company. Like unless you become a platform, there probably like you will not have a place in the world. So you will be, you will become part of other platform, or you will just go out of business, right? So every company wants to optimize to become a platform. So this is universal sort of need for startups, and it's really hard to find that path. But so like we are trying that. We are working on that.
Yeah, that's totally where Balto is too. We ask the question maybe every single day, how do we tie this all together? How do we tie this all together? Because there are very clear customer needs you can solve, and we want to go solve those needs. And then you want to build out, and you don't want to have gaps in what you've built, but you also want it to all work together in some sort of way where one capability improves another capability. So we're always asking, how do we tie it together? I heard you mention that the two products are very different, but they have an underlying architecture in common. Could you talk a little bit about what they might have in common, and also like wins you get from that when you've engineered your solution that way? What does that then allow you to do for the next thing you build or do for customers?
Yeah, let me give some like historical context actually how we built Krisp. So like originally when we founded the company, we said like we were a technology company, like we wanted to solve the noise canceling problem for real-time audio, right? And the most intuitive way to build a business around it is to go and license such technology to other companies, right? Um, but as we were, trying to learn how to be entrepreneurs, like one thing we understood is that actually we do want to have a like app company. We want to be a product company rather than like licensing company. And the idea crossed our minds that actually there is a way to bring this technology to end users if you build a virtual microphone app, right? You could just sit between like the headset and like Zoom or any other app and process the real-time audio by applying your technology to it. I think it was a very clever idea. It was actually originally it was a marketing idea. Like we thought like we would put it there, people will like it, try it, because you can just download and try it, and then they will come to us to license our technology. And that's exactly what happened. Like a lot of companies, like the biggest companies out there, like came to us and say like, hey, can we license your technology? But then at that time we were so excited about the idea of the product that we said, okay, no, we are not licensing, and we're gonna become a product company. So the underlying architecture is this idea that Krisp is a virtual microphone and virtual speaker, right? It sits on your operating system. It sees the audio, whether you're using Zoom or you're using any headset. We sit there like in between, and we are able to process the audio and do good things for you, right, as a user. So such as noise cancellation or accent localization or translation of your conversation or transcription, right? And then summarization and then other things. So basically everything we do has been built on top of this architecture that we have built like the industry's best virtual microphone and speaker app. And like it took us a lot of effort to build it because it's like you deal with audio drivers, there are a lot of things you need to account, like different apps behave differently, different headsets behave differently, but it's a muscle and strength we have built, and then the rest of the things we have built on top of that. So both products now we have in call center and hybrid workforce use cases share this architecture of this audio driver, right? And then they share one more thing. So as a company, our strength is, hey, like, can we optimize or build like AI models that are optimized for real-time audio and run on device? Like this is the strength that Krisp has, right? Like we almost never run anything in the cloud in terms of AI models. And so our core competency is that. So for a long time, that's what we have been doing. Like our noise cancellation runs on device. We even have transcription technology now that runs on device on like old Intel CPUs, which is very, very hard to do actually. But because we run on device, we basically, it's free for us. And that's the key actually, like that it enables a lot of sort of business models that others cannot afford.
I bet that's a key component to the real-time translation that you mentioned.
Yeah, unfortunately, that one we haven't built. Like, it's not on device. I don't think there is any technology today that for translation, like speech-to-speech translation, that can run on device. Probably we will get there at some point, but these models are very big, so they run in the cloud.
So how close is that product to being, GA, general availability? Or, is that something where, because I think that that's been, the idea of like translation in real time has been something that people have been imagining for so many years. And then we've started to see it, a little bit, with like smartphones and the ability to, translate when you're traveling abroad. But we haven't really seen it in the enterprise,
Yeah.
or if it's there, it's very, very nascent. And I love that. I think, your guys' approach of, the virtual microphone, even if you're approaching this with a cloud architecture, I think just makes you guys very well suited to be able to do real-time translation, just given the expertise you guys have around manipulating audio, and extracting value and information from audio. So, how close is that product to being, ready? And, what should users expect on day one? And what do you think they should expect a year from then?
Yeah, I think in terms of the real time, and by the way, we are talking about speech to speech translation, right? So I
Yes.
speak a certain language, and then you hear in real, almost real time, in other language. So I don't think there is a technology that does it today with a decent experience. I know that there is this feature exists on like mobile phones. I think Google has it, Samsung has them. I have never seen this technology being used in production for like more like enterprise use case. It really depends how you define the problem. If you say, well, just speak any language and you're gonna hear that in real time in a different language, I think we're very far from that actually. I think honestly, I think like 2 years at least, right? For just the technology to be there. Like, yeah, demos can be there, but technology, because again, like it's very hard to achieve low latency with this stuff because translation is hard. Like you need, like for certain languages, you need to wait until the end to understand the context, right? And because it's speech, like you cannot translate if you don't have the context. But if you put a constraint to the problem and say like, okay, maybe like it's not real time, or maybe, yeah, maybe like it's not this perfect, but it actually works and it solves problems. If you put constraints to the problem, I think you can do that even today. So we do plan to be GA this year. I'm very excited about that.
What are some of the big things your customers are trying to achieve? What are some of the outcomes that you all are able to get for them that you're most proud of?
Oh yeah, so like talking about the sort of the contact center product, we love like how we impact agents, right? Frontline agents. So if you think about it, like there is a category called agent assist, right? And I know like you're highly familiar with it. And if you think about it, I mean, it has many components to it. Like how, like basically, how can you assist the agent to be more productive, to be more happy and be less stressful at work? Because their work is like quite stressful, and there are different avenues that you can use to make that. So one way that the industry is doing is through real-time feedback, and I think like you guys are like one of the leaders in that, right? So to give real-time feedback to the agents, like for like next best action and stuff like that. But if you think about noise cancellation, that's also agent assist, right? If you're able to put like create an environment for the agent where they can, have less stress because of the noise that is coming from the environment, of course, that's an assistant to them, right? Or if you can help them to understand the accents of the customer or localize their accent to the customer so that the conversation just flows better and both sides can understand better. Obviously, that's an assistant, right? If you can uh, like translate the language and make it seamless, obviously that's an assistant. So like a lot of the things that we are building actually is in that category, the agent assist category, although we are approaching the problem a bit differently than the industry. I think like that's my impression. So yeah, that's the biggest thing. And obviously when you impact the agent's work, of course it has like very direct ROI impact on the call center as well, right? The standard metrics such as CSAT, uh, average handling time, and also agents' happiness, which translates to lower turnover. Those are impacted by those. Uh,
One of the things that we talk about a lot at Balto is that there seems to be a little bit of like a battle that's getting set up right now. And on one side of the battlefield is the automated agents. And, obviously there's chatbots that are getting pretty good, but also automated voice agents. I didn't think anyone really thought that was a possibility, call it 2 years ago. And now I think people feel like it's not that far off to have a fully conversational natural language voice agent, that is solving customer problems. So on one side, we almost see this, automated agents getting ready for battle. On the other side, we see, augmenting the agents, the human agents people already have, and, investing in, agent assist and, making sure that they're, happy with the quality of work and that they stay and that they perform better than they otherwise could have without technology. Um, how do you view, this battle? Are you guys thinking about seeing the same thing? What do you think we're going to see play out?
yeah, of course, like that's top of mind. I think that's top of mind for every company that is operating in that industry. Actually, like at just recently at CCW, I was doing interviews with some of our customers and just like industry leaders, right? And this was a top of mind sort of topic. And I was trying to understand different perspectives. I think like there is at least alignment for the folks that I was interviewing. I don't know if there is an alignment in the industry or not, but clearly it's inevitable that voice or virtual agents like voice virtual agents, they are going to take over the easier sort of issues, right, or tasks that people have to handle today. But also there is an alignment in the industry that it will take more time than anticipated for these agents to be able to, for the virtual agents to be able to take over harder problems. So there will be probably a shift, of workforce to go from easier to more like harder problems, and because it does make sense, like there is no shortage of hard problems in customer service. And the question is, do companies have enough resources to delight customers who have these hard problems? So if you you know decrease your investments in solving, like handling easier problems, I think there is a case to be made that you should invest more in like handling the harder problems. And I think that's what businesses are going to be doing, because delighting customers brings revenue, right? So there is a clear incentive to do that. So I think like more investments are going to go into the handling like harder problems. So like you like so agents are going to be re-qualified to do that, or you're going to just hire more technical people to deal with this. This will like I think the agent like population in the world is going to shrink over time, but how much, I think nobody knows today. That's like a very important question. So are you guys working on virtual agents actually? Do you envision it being part of your platform?
It's so funny you asked. The answer is no, and I'll give you I'll give you the long answer. So I do think automated agents are going to be here. I think that they will, I basically kind of bucketed slow, medium, fast. How fast is this going to be here? And I kind of put it in the medium bucket. The reason is one, the technology is not even there yet. And then two, when it is, it's then going to go through a whole bunch of business, human, what I call social acceptance friction. And that is, businesses doing evaluation cycles, and then doing procurement cycles, and then doing implementation, and then doing small pilots and betas, and then expanding it. And we just know that that process is, 1 to 3 years. So we're 1 to 3 years for it actually being through its, full cycle once the technology actually gets here, right? So I do think that we'll see it in the next few years, but I don't think it's something we're going to see right now. And then the question that we asked is, okay, do we think that we're in a good position to be a first mover there? And the answer is, the entire DNA of our company is around helping contact center stakeholders do their work better and faster. That's what every day we've been waking up for the last 7.5 years. We're saying, how do we make agents more effective? How do we make supervisors more effective? How do we make quality more effective? How do we make contact center leadership more effective? How do we cut out unnecessary work for them? How do we, speed up the time it takes to do a task by getting rid of something that they don't want to do? And that's like been what we think about every single day for the last 7.5 years. So to be like, skirt, everyone stop, we're now building the replacement machine. It's not a part of our DNA. So, there will be a time in the way future where, it gets built. And then I think actually the time between when it gets released and when it gets commoditized will be very short. I think that you'll have first movers who build it. And then I think the open AIs of the world will say, we're releasing our automated agent API, and then it just needs to get productized. So we're going to really invest every bit of our attention to helping people be better. And when we finally get to a point that the world has moved so much that there need to be automated agents, and that technology needs to get introduced, we'll happily do that as a second mover, but only after we've made every single effort to help people keep up. And I think that we will be able to help people keep up, especially with those more complex tasks, because just as machines are getting better, so are people. And we just need to, continue to inflect the people curve as well. And I think that'll allow us to like have a lot more fulfillment in work. Our mission is to power a new era of knowledge work in the contact center. And basically it's have people do smarter, harder, more fulfilling work. And I think that we're going to be able to do that, especially as machines take over the other stuff.
Yeah, I love your strategy. Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think you're doing the right thing. Yeah.
So where do you think AI will be in the next 3 years? Just kind of mapping it out, where do you think AI will be in 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the right answer here is I don't know. I can just speculate, right? Because it's like the most one of the most important questions, I guess, out there that companies have invested hundreds of billions of dollars today in this industry, or AI industry, right? And that's going to continue. So better if that pays off. So I think in general, obviously it's pretty obvious that the investment hasn't paid off yet. So more of that investment is going into training rather than inference, which means that it hasn't paid off yet. I think there are certain use cases where it does pay off. Let's say summarization, or like meeting summarization and action item extraction. I think it's like working very well, so we can see it in our product. Like it's very clear it's working well, and this use case is going to grow, and more inference is going to be dedicated to it. And there are clearly use cases where it works, but in order to return all this investment, it must be a bigger use case, right? And for that, we need more intelligence. Like we need these models to be more intelligent. I think like the people who are the closest to these models, even they don't know whether they're gonna be able to squeeze more intelligence. Like, I mean, they will squeeze, but will there be a leap forward or not? That's the biggest question. Because if there is a leap forward, then I mean everything is gonna change. I think like it's clear, right? But if it's gonna be iterative, which I like, I like it to be iterative because it's just safer for everyone for it to be iterative. I think that we all are going to be able to adopt, like the companies and people are going to adopt to this change. And in terms of like where it's going to be, obviously we are going to just become highly productive than we are today, or we were like 10 years ago. This is not going to stop, and I'm super excited about that. Like it's going to change like a lot of industries, everything, like but hopefully iteratively.
Davit, so good seeing you. Thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lot of fun. I'm really glad we did this.
Absolutely. Always happy to talk to you, Mark. Thanks for this.